April 15th, 1943, at 20,000 feet over the French coast near Dieppe. Picture this. The leather glove on the control stick tightens as Major Donald Blakeslee spots that distinctive shape breaking through the clouds below. After weeks of tough training flights and fix-up problems with those new Republic P-47 Thunderbolts, the 4th Fighter Group is finally facing the bad guys. Those huge American fighters, which British pilots jokingly called 7-ton milk bottles, are about to show what they're made of. Through his gun sight, Blakeslee tracks a FW-190 from JG-26 Schlageter, not knowing he's about to make history. At 300 yards, he presses the firing button. 8 Browning AN M250 caliber machine guns burst out all at once, each firing at 800 rounds per minute. The combined firepower, a theoretical rate of 6,400 rounds per minute, sends a focused stream of armor-piercing incendiary ammo right into the German fighter. That Focke-Wulf, the pride of the Luftwaffe, with its two 20mm MG 151-20 cannons and two 7.92mm MG 17 machine guns, falls apart in seconds. This is the P-47's first win in the air, starting a big change in how fights happen up in the sky. The Americans didn't just build a fighter plane, they created a flying weapons machine that would change firepower forever through tons of stuff made in factories. The story started months before that first win. The P-47's first real mission happened on March 10, 1943, when the 4th Fighter Group flew a fighter sweep over France. Radio problems messed up this first trip, making them go back to base and put in British radio gear. All through early 1943, the 4th Fighter Group, who used to be the RAF's Eagle Squadrons, had a hard time switching from quick Spitfires to these giant P-47s. The Thunderbolt weighed 12,731 pounds empty and up to 1,700 pounds fully loaded, more than twice as much as a Messerschmitt Bf-109G Republic Aviation's factory in Farmingdale, New York, was making these big planes super fast. By April 1943, Republic was finishing one P-47 every 4 hours, and production was speeding up every month. Alexander Kartveli, the Georgian-born chief designer, thought about fighter planes in a way that seemed crazy to European engineers. Maximum firepower delivered through maximum making of stuff, where German designers worried about saving weight in tiny amounts like grams. Kartveli added guns, ammo, and armor plates. Colonel Hubert Zemke, who commanded the 56th Fighter Group, got the American way. His unit got to England in January 1943, and by April was flying combat missions. The 56th would be the only 8th Air Force Fighter Group to fly P-47s, only all through the war, eventually getting 674 wins in the air. The math of the P-47's firepower was simple. Early P-47C and P-47D models carried 350 rounds per gun, 2,800 rounds total. The 8 guns, 4 per wing, made a spot at 250 yards where all the bullet paths crossed. In that spot, the bunch of firepower was more than anything seen before in single-engine fighter fights. A 1-second burst sent out 107 half-inch bullets, each going at 2,140 feet per second. Luftwaffe. Spies at first didn't believe reports of the P-47's guns. 8 heavy machine guns on a single-engine fighter seemed like it couldn't be done. German fighter ideas focused on being efficient. The least guns needed to take down enemy planes, saving weight for speed and moves. The FW-190A5, the main Luftwaffe fighter in Western Europe during spring 1943, carried two 7.92mm MG 17 machine guns with 1,000 rounds each and two 20mm MG 151-20 cannons with 250 rounds each in the wing roots. While the 20mm with exploding shells were more destructive one by one than 50 caliber bullets. The limited ammo of 500 cannon rounds meant you had to aim super carefully. German pilots made attack ways based on saving ammo, short exact bursts at close range. This idea worked well against British Spitfires and Hurricanes, which usually had 8 .303 rifle caliber machine guns or mixes of guns and cannons with not much ammo. After Blakeslee's first win on April 15th, meetings between P-47s and German fighters went up fast. On April 17th, P-47s of the 4th Fighter Group flew their first mission to guard bombers. Though range limits with early drop tanks made them turn back soon, The mind effect on German pilots was right away. The 8 guns made a sight like nothing before. The P-47's normal ammo setup, 4 armor-piercing incendiary M8, 1 tracer M1, meant every 5th round glowed while flying, looking like a steady beam of light instead of separate bullets. By May 1943, the Luftwaffe's Rechlin Test Center was looking at captured P-47 parts. German engineers found that the Browning AN M2 machine gun, though designed in 1933, had been made better through big factory making to amazing reliability. Parts were really swappable. Any part from any gun would fit perfectly in any other gun. A level of sameness German factories couldn't do. The ammo feed used belts that fell apart and ejected clean from the plane. German fighters used either drum magazines limited to 60 to 200 rounds or belt systems that kept links, adding weight and mess. The American system's trustworthiness meant pilots could, if needed, fire all their ammo in one long burst. The size of American ammo making shocked German experts. By mid-1943, the 8th Air Force was flying over 200 P-47 trips daily, each plane carrying 2,800 rounds, and pilots usually using 60% of their ammo. This meant about 336,000 rounds fired every day, more than the whole German fighter force in France got in a week. The Lake City Army ammunition plant in Missouri had hit making of 1.6 billion rounds each year by 1943. This one place made more than all of Germany's small arms ammo factories. This plant ran all the time with 20,000 workers in shifts, keeping quality so tight that they threw out any round off by more than 0.001 inch from specs. Republic Aviation's making was just as amazing. The Farmingdale plant covered 765,000 square feet, with more making at Evansville, Indiana. Together, they hit over 400 P-47s a month by late 1943, while German fighter making of all kinds had trouble going over 1,000 a month. German fighter ideas focused on light, easy-to-move planes. The Messerschmitt Bf-109 G6 weighed 6,940 pounds fully loaded. The Focke-Wulf 190 A5 reached 9,040. The P-47C weighed 13,500 pounds loaded. The P-47D reached 14,500 pounds, way too heavy by German ideas. Yet the P-47's Pratt & Whitney R2800, double wasp engine making 2,000 horsepower at first and 2,300, in later ones gave good power to weight numbers. The weight gave steadiness as a gun spot and could take huge damage. The General Electric Turbo Supercharger system weighed 845 pounds alone, almost the whole gun weight allowed on German fighters, but it kept full power at 30,000 feet, altitudes, where the BMW 801 radial engine in the FW-190 lost lots of power above 20,000 feet. The surprise of facing P-47 firepower made quick Luftwaffe tactic changes. Old attackways became like suicide when P-47s were there. American fighters didn't need the best shooting spot. Their amount of fire made kill areas. German fighters couldn't live through crossing them. Luftwaffe units made new tactics using the FW-190's better roll rate and turning at low height, but getting to low height needed diving. Through the P-47's fire area, American pilots learned to use height edge and firepower to push German fighters into bad spots. The difference in ammo ideas was huge. German pilots went into fights with 60 to 90 seconds of firing time. P-47 pilots had 30 to 35 seconds of non-stop fire. Ready. This gap made basic tactic differences. Germans saved ammo while Americans fired a lot. August 17, 1943. The first Schweinfurt Regensburg mission showed both P-47 good points and limits. Within escort range, P-47s wrecked German attackers. The 56th Fighter Group alone claimed 17 wins without losing any. But P-47 range, even with 75-gallon belly tanks, limited escort to about 375 miles from base. German tactics changed to use this limit. Luftwaffe bosses waited until P-47s left before sending attacks. The bomber losses that happened, 60 B-17s, showed the need for longer range, but inside the P-47's safe area, bomber losses were almost zero. Bringing in 108 and later 150-gallon drop tanks slowly made range longer. By October 1943, P-47s could guard bombers 425 Miles from base, each longer range meant German fighters had to wait more and fly farther before fighting. The setup supporting P-47 work reached factory sizes that German mines couldn't get. Each P-47 squadron kept backups of 500,000 rounds forward airfields. In England stored millions of rounds. Supply ships brought ammo all the time from American factories. A normal P-47 group had enough ammo for 30 days of hardest fights. Without getting more, German fighter units worked on 3-day backups, often less. American pilots fired freely while German pilots counted every round. Fix-up supplies showed the same big difference. American storage places kept full extra engines, gun sets, and big parts. Hurt P-47s could be fixed from spare parts in days. German units took parts from hurt planes, lowering how many could fly even when bodies could be fixed. October 14, 1943, Black Thursday. The second Schweinfurt raid was a turning point. While P-47s flew guard to max range, claiming 21 German fighters, bombers faced bad attacks after escorts left. German pilot reports showed growing worry about fighting P-47s. The math was clear. A German fighter squadron, staffel of 12 planes, might have 7,000 rounds total of mixed sizes. A single P-47 squadron of 16 planes carried 44,800 rounds of heavy machine gun ammo, with millions more in backup. The firepower edge was made bigger by training differences. American P-47 pilots came to fights with over 400 flight hours, including over 100 hours of gun training. They had fired thousands of practice rounds at targets. German pilot training by late 1943 averaged 110 flight hours before fights, with maybe 20 hours of gun training. Fuel shortages meant many German pilots went into fights having fired their guns. Only a few times, they faced American pilots who had used more ammo in training than German. Pilots would fire in their whole fight lives. Lieutenant Colonel Francis Gaby Gabreski, who would become the top P-47 ace in Europe with 28 wins, described the tactic truth. We didn't need to be better shots. We needed to put our sight on them and hold the trigger down. The 50s did the rest. By November 1943, P-47 groups started focusing on ground attacks after guard duties. The 50 caliber guns proved super bad against trains, cars, and parked planes. Armor-piercing incendiary ammo could go through train boilers and car armor. A single P-47 could wreck a whole train in one pass. The normal attack way was a 30-degree dive, starting fire at 1,000 yards, moving rudder pedals to spray bullets across the target, pulling out at 200 feet. In 10 seconds, a P-47 could send 800 to 1,000 rounds into a target area 100 yards. Long-dot German moving networks faced planned wrecking P-47s. Wrecked trains faster than German factories could replace them. By December 1943, German units avoided train moves during day because of P-47 attacks. The P-47's role in the big bombing plan was key. While the P-51 Mustang would later take the long-range guard job, P-47s gave the first shield that let the bomber attacks keep going despite big losses. By early 1944, better P-47D types carried 425 rounds per gun, 3,400 rounds total. The P-47D-25 brought a bubble canopy, paddle blade propeller, and spots for rockets besides guns. These fixes kept the P-47's fight power, even as German fighters got better. June 6, 1944, D-Day gave the biggest show. P-47s flew 2,398 trips, claiming 84 German planes wrecked in air and 89 on ground. More important, they stopped German ground moves through attacks the Luftwaffe managed only. 319 trips over Normandy on D-Day. Americans flew over $13,000 German fighters over Normandy had maybe 200,000 rounds total. American fighters carried millions of rounds with endless resupply. P-47s made free-fire areas where anything moving got wrecked. Vehicle lines were turned to burning junk in single passes. The special whistling sound of diving P-47s, air going through gun ports and cooling ducts, became a scary weapon. By late 1944, German fighter making actually hit a high of 25,000 a year. But fuel shortages, pilot losses, and huge Allied number power meant most never flew in fights. Those that did faced odds over 10 to 1, The Messerschmitt Me 262 jet fighter gave speed edge, but not firepower better. Its four 30mm Mk108 cannons carried only 80 to 100 rounds per gun, 360 rounds total. While bad against bombers, limited ammo and low speed from muzzle made them less good against fighters. The P-47N brought in for Pacific work carried 550 gallons internal fuel. This single-seat fighter carried more fuel than German medium bombers, showing American factory power to build planes that broke normal limits. Final, making numbers tell the story. Total P-47, making 15,683 planes peak, monthly making over 400 planes from combined plants. Total, FW-190 making about 20,000. All types from 1941 to 1945 FW-190 fighter types about 13,000 each. P-47 was fully set with 8 guns and enough ammo. German fighters more and more flew with less guns because of shortages. By 1945, some FW-190s worked with only 2 cannons instead of 4 to save ammo. Republic Aviation's places covered over 1 million square feet of making space. German fighter making worked from often bombed places with spread out, making lowering how well it worked. Lake City Army Ammunition Plant alone made 1.6 billion rounds a year, combined with other places. Frankfurt Arsenal, Des Moines Ordnance Plant, Twin Cities Ordnance Plant, American making, went over 10 billion rounds of 50 caliber ammo. During the war, German ammo making for all plane weapons totaled about 4 billion rounds, including all sizes together. Americans made more rounds of their single heavy machine gun size than Germany made of all plane ammo types. Together, quality checks were way different. American ammo went through many checks with 2 to 3% thrown out. German making, more and more using slave labor and fake materials, had higher break rates that lowered real firepower. The US Strategic Bombing Survey wrote down P-47 wins in Europe, 116 enemy planes wrecked in air. Fights 3,200 enemy planes wrecked on ground, 9,000 locomotives wrecked, 6,000 railway cars wrecked, 1,000 motor vehicles wrecked, the armored fighting vehicles wrecked. These numbers show big plan impact beyond fight wins. Moving setup wrecking by P-47s really lowered Wehrmacht moving and supply. The Luftwaffes can't to fight back P-47 ground attacks meant American air power worked with almost no punishment. American pilots who finished 25 mission tours, later made to 35, then 50, went home to train new pilots. German pilots flew until killed, caught or hurt. By late 1944, most Luftwaffe pilots were newbies facing American old-timers. The skill gap got wider all the time. American training programs added fight lessons right away. German training messed up by fuel shortages and cut short by need made. Pilots with different skill levels facing same American tactics beyond firepower. P-47s had tech that made them better. The turbo supercharger let full power at super high spots. The R-2800s. Trustworthiness meant steady work with 400-hour times between big fixes. The K-14 gun sight, brought in late 1944, figured out aim bends automatically. Using gyro ways, pilots just framed targets and fired. German fighters used reflector sights needing hand guesses for bends. Gun heating systems stopped freezing at height. P-47 guns worked fine at 40,000 feet in 60 degrees F temps. German fighters often had gun freezing above 25,000 feet, especially wing guns. American plenty went to fix-ups. P-47 groups kept big spare parts, full engines, gun sets, propellers. The ground crews could totally re-engine planes overnight. Battle hurt needing weeks of German fixes was done in days. German fix-ups became more problematic. Spare parts shortages meant taking from others. By late 1944, Luftwaffe ready rates dropped below 50%. American P-47 groups kept 85% ready rates normally. American crew chiefs were trained experts with lots of tech, learning. German ground crews used up by drafting more and more were foreign workers, and Hitler, youth with little training. P-47s burned 130 grade aviation fuel, letting higher pressures and more power. German fake fuel from coal gave uneven octane numbers, lowering work and trustworthiness. By late 1944, German fighters got 30 to 50 gallons per trip when their P-47s normally carried 370 gallons inside, plus outside tanks. American pilots flew many trips a day, while Germans were stuck by fuel lacks. German pilots knew wild moves used up valuable fuel needed to get back. American pilots flew without fuel worry, letting wild tactics Germans couldn't do. The P-47 stood for American factory ideas, huge amounts of OK quality. Where Germans chased perfect tech in small numbers, Americans chased good enough work in endless numbers. Cartvelli's design put easy making over best tweaks. The P-47 was easier to make than German fighters, even with more mess, sameness, and big making meant faster making at lower cost. This idea went through the whole supply line. The same 50 caliber rounds fired by P-47s were used by bombers, ground cars, and Navy ships. This made supply simple while getting big savings impossible with different sizes. German tries to match American firepower didn't work. The FW-190 A8, brought in February 1944, could carry extra cannons in underwing pods, but added weight and drag really hurt work. The Sturmstaffel type, made best for wrecking bombers with heavy armor and 30mm cannons, was no help against guard fighters. The basic problem was factory power. Germany could not fight a many-front war and match American making at the same time. Trying to do so only sped up running out of stuff. Beyond real wrecking, P-47s won mind wins. The special whistle of diving P-47s became a scary weapon. German soldiers got lasting worry about P-47 attacks, diving for cover at any plane sound. American pilots knew their mind, edge. They flew with sureness from endless stuff. German pilots flew with no choice from lax. This mind state changed tactic. Choices with Germans more and more avoiding fights unless needed. The P-47 got a 4.6.1 kill ratio in over 746,000 trips, while 3,499 P-47s were lost to all reasons. This was less than 0.5% loss rate per trip. German fighter units had 50% monthly hurt by late 1944. The 56th Fighter Group, flying only P-47s through the war, became the top-scoring American fighter group in Europe with 674 air wins. This showed that supposed P-47 limits were beat by firepower, toughness, and pilot skill. The P-47's 50 caliber guns stood for more than firepower. They showed American factory ideas. Winning. Each gun needed exact making and tricky supply lines that America could put 8 per fighter, with ammo to keep them going, showed factory top spot. Going beyond Army math, Army history, people see P-47 firepower as key in getting air top spot over Europe. The power to send huge firepower at long ranges broke the Luftwaffe's defend power. Once air top spot was got, Allied win became sure. The P-47's effect went beyond World War II. It set rules that rule modern air fights: firepower top through amount of fire, sameness letting big making, and factory power deciding army power. Modern fighters carrying turning cannons firing 6,000 rounds per minute are straight kids of the P-47's ideas. Exact guided bombs stand for growth, not no of the firepower rule, another way of huge force through factory top. When West Germany rebuilt its air force in the 1950s, it took American gear, tactics, and ideas. German pilots trained on American planes, fired American ammo, took in American ideas. The student learning from the master. While numbers tell the big plan story, single stories show the people side. Colonel Robert S. Johnson of the 56th Fighter Group lived through an attack on June 26, 1943, that put over 200 bullet holes in his P-47. The plane took damage that would have wrecked any German fighter. Flying home with controls hurt and canopy broken. Colonel Hubert Zemke, commanding the 56th Fighter Group, made tactics that maxed P-47 good points. His Zemke fans spread squadrons wide, making overlapping firefields German fighters couldn't get through. Under his lead, the 56th got amazing wins only with P-47s. German pilot Heinz Knoke, writer of I Flew for the Führer, described facing P-47s as going against streams of tracers that seemed solid, making bomber gets through guard screens impossible. His book gives valuable German view on American firepower top. Behind numbers were millions of American workers making the arsenal of democracy. At Republic Aviation's Farmingdale plant, women made up 40% of workers by 1943. These workers built P-47s with exactness better than peacetime while keeping amazing making rates. Lake City ammunition plant ran all the time. Workers making billions of rounds in controlled weather places. Quality check people, mostly women, threw out rounds a bit off from specs. Their hard work made sure American pilots never had ammo breaks that hurt German fighters. American workers got good pay, lived comfy, took pride in helping. German making more and more needed forced labor in bad conditions, leading to wrecking and dropping quality. The P-47 program cost about $1.3 billion in 1940s dollars. This was huge spending on one weapon setup. Yet, American factory power made this okay, while at the same time making thousands of other planes, tanks, and ships. American big-making lowered unit costs all the time. Early P-47s cost over $100,000 each. By 1945, unit cost dropped to $83,000, even with more power. German fighter costs went up through the war as making spread and stuff shortages lowered how well. After war, looks showed the big gap between American and German making ways. American factories used special machine tools, line putting together, number quality checks. German making kept craft ways not good for big making. The Browning M2's design made big making easy, simple, strong parts made by half-skilled workers using auto machines. German weapons needed skilled workers using old ways. This basic difference meant America could grow making hugely while Germany could not. The P-47's 8 guns stood for mix of American edges, factory power, tech new stuff, supply greatness, and training top. No single thing was key. Their mix proved too much. Factory power gave the base, power to make fighters, guns, ammo in huge amounts. Tech let work well, turbo supercharging, trustworthy engines, exact making. Supply sent stuff where needed. Training made sure pilots could use edges. Germany had great pilots, new tech, tactic smart, but without factory base to help them, these edges weren't enough. The Luftwaffe was beat not by better tactics, but by too much stuff top shown by 8 guns firing non-stop. German pilots facing P-47 Thunderbolts learned hard lessons about modern war. Their FW-190s, great fighters by old ideas, were too much by American firepower sent through factory making. 50 caliber machine guns with endless ammo stood for new warways. The change from sure through shock to OK mirrors. Germany's bigger World War II time. First tactic top based on new and skill fell apart against American big making and stuff plenty. The P-47, at first laughed off as too heavy, proved that factory might could beat tactic bad points. German pilots were shocked not just by 8 guns firing together, but by what those guns stood for. A country making endless weapons, ammo, and planes. The FW-190 might have been better in old terms, but old terms had become old. The P-47's 50s rewrote airfight rules through factory power. The legacy lasts in every modern fighter, putting firepower over fine moves, every huge ammo use, every factory way to army problems, all trace family to the moment German pilots first met, ate together Browning machine, guns and got that their whole knowing of air fights was old. The P-47 Thunderbolt didn't just outgun the Focke-Wulf 190, it outmade, outsupplied, and in the end outthought German flying ideas through too much firepower sent by factory democracy. The 8 guns weren't just weapons, they were senders of American factory might every burst showed, making powers Nazi Germany could never match. The thunder roar of 8 together Brownings became the sound of sure Allied win, a sound that echoed from the factories of America to the skies over Europe, forever changing the nature of fights in the air.